Okay. Part two, I guess. Um, so I refused the medication, and it seemed that they wanted to keep me there until I was going to agree to take it. There was a social worker that came in, uh, who explained the rights of a patient, and I knew most of them. There were a few I didn't, but uh, I didn't. Figured out that in 1996, your general consent form that you have to sign, otherwise you can't. If you're committed, which I was when I was 15 or 16, you'll be sent to jail. So you have to sign the general consent form. But up until 96, they were allowed to use ECT on you, electroconvulsion shock therapy. And that did happen to me when I was a teenager at a hospital. And I did not consent to it. I signed the general consent form, but that was whenever I was taking medicine and trying to give it a chance and whatever. But I was so out of my sorts, that I was just a zombie. I sleep all day. I can't imagine trying to function in the real world with that. No. Um, it was a pretty big disappointment that I got committed, but I understand why. I was talking to my therapist. She was concerned about um, there are so many people trying to contact me. Uh, since I got out yesterday, I can't keep up. So I've had several phone calls. That's why I split it into two videos. Um, Hopefully, just two. The reason I was committed was I. Um, some of it I can't talk about because it involves it's family related, and it's involves minor children. So I just simply can't talk about it. But what I can talk about is Cowboy, and that there is. I mean, since it's family related, um, and Cowboy is my stepfather. There's some things that have happened in the last 2 months that are very reminiscent of when I was growing up, um, and and I was simply not going to allow it to happen to someone else. And I made a statement very loud and clear, and was not kidding when I made this very very violent. Uh, well, you could call it a psychotic break, I suppose. Um, but I felt completely in control of what I was doing. Maybe that's why the therapist felt it was necessary um, to commit me. I was arrested on site and detained and brought to a hospital where I was held for 6 hours and sent to this facility for 7 days. While I was there, watch any movie where there's a mental ward, and you get the standard variety of what's there. However, the staff, the techs, specifically the people who are paid the lowest, which in my opinion should be paid way more, were the most helpful because they treat you like a human being. Imagine that. So, like I said, I wasn't trying to make comparisons, but if I had to, it's that in these in the mental health system we have here in the United States, so far from what I've experienced, this is my third time around, many years later, hasn't changed. much, except that when you sign a general consent, they're not allowed to shock your brain. Everything else pretty much the same. You have private institutions that are looking to make a buck off of Medicaid. And it doesn't really matter to them whether the people inside get help or not. What matters is that you use key phrases and that you go to the groups um, and talk, I guess. But the key phrases, it's language, okay? It all boils back down to language, which is what I was trying to tell some of the charge nurses, is that if you're going to group and you're asking people who are there what they do to cope and then not giving them any suggestions, you're failing miserably. If they knew how to cope with the situation they were in, they wouldn't be there. So, I shared that. I shared how I cope, how I have coped throughout the years through sublimation. And believe it or not, this person did not, and this is not a social worker, this was someone, not that I know of, this was someone who was the doctor's assistant. Someone supposedly very qualified. Did not know what sublimation was in regards to coping. So, now to her credit, when I started to talk about it, the entire focus of the group was centered on me and my explanation of what sublimation is, how to positively sublimate, how to negatively sublimate, and how to use your thoughts, how to control, and not control your thoughts, but how to think or not think, how to let things go, how to meditate, how to pray, stuff like that. Stuff some people already knew, but I was just giving examples of sublimation, which she did not know what it was. After that, I think they wanted to keep me for a few more days, but at the same time, they didn't want me there because, I'll be honest, there were some, not all, but there were some people there that I actually did help. I had I didn't resist. The day that I got detained, I was very upset and didn't want to be there, which is understandable. That's a normal feeling. But once I got there, I realized that's where I was, and I got to make the best of it. So I meditated. I did my qigong. I did my exercises. I stayed in my room a lot. I didn't go to groups much until the end, and until I met some people there that were that I felt comfortable talking to, that I saw were in genuine distress and went there on their own, had themselves committed into a system they had never been in, and were also very disappointed in. And I sure hope that they're all doing good. There's a video I'm going to make specifically for one of the techs, and it's a video about stretching, and I'm not going to say her name, but it's a type of flower. So if any of the techs that subscribe to the channel are watching, please show the only woman that I know there that has the name of a flower this video. She's going to try and have a child, and anyone that is a viewer that prays, then please pray for her successful uh, pregnancy. She lost a child. It was very traumatic, very sad. And I kind of desperately want her to have a child so that she can experience that. So, in a nutshell, the terms of my release essentially are that I am to have no contact with Cowboy. No contact. And that's really shitty, unfortunate, unfair. I don't particularly like it. But it's gotten to a point where it's just, there's no other option. There really is not. It's such a toxic relationship and has been for so many years that there's no coming back from it. It's very unfortunate, and I love him, and I wish that it wasn't this way, because it's well, you know, in a way it's very poetic. I disconnected from my biological father, and now I'm setting boundaries, large, far, long boundaries with my stepfather. It feels like the same thing. So, except in this instance, it feels actually healthier. So I can't say much good about our mental health system. I really can't. It was a real test. It was a free 7-day meditation for me, which was very good for me. That wasn't really the I wouldn't attribute that to the mental health system. Many people go in there and lose their mind. We had someone escape the facility while we were there, and I think there was one takedown. But you know, if you need help and you go talk to a therapist, remember this, folks. Those who speak are not wise, and those who are wise do not speak. That is not an absolute. What that means to me is there are things you should keep to yourself. And I'm not good at that, clearly. But it's hard for me to, I'm a bad liar. So, when I talk to my therapist, I tend to tell her the truth. It's like I did my attorney. My attorney actually commented and said, "You're too honest. That's going to hurt you." I don't really care. That is what my dad, my biological father, instilled into me, or tried to, you know, for many, many years, through his own example. By example, he told me the truth. He told me the truth. There were things I didn't want to know, or the things that would potentially hurt me emotionally, but he never pulled any punches with the truth. And I feel like that is a virtuous thing, and a way to live, by telling the truth. So, any of you guys who were concerned or worried about what's been going on, disappeared, that's what happened. I went to therapy, got committed. I'm going back to the therapist. Hopefully, she won't commit me again. I am not suicidal. I am not even homicidal. I don't want to hurt anybody. But there are times when any person can snap. And I had snapped. It just happened a couple weeks prior to my session. And I had told my therapist about it. We had gotten caught up on some stuff, and I told her about it. And she had to do an evaluation. And that's where it led, was to being committed. So, that's the disclaimer. I'm not suicidal or homicidal. In fact, I was trying to explain to her how I got through the suicidal ideation, and how I do that on I wouldn't say a regular basis, but when it happens, I find a way out through sublimation. And yeah. Namaste, everybody. I'm tired as hell. Didn't sleep well yesterday. Had to go to the trailer to get some clothes. Stayed at a friend's house last night where nobody knows where I'm at. Like, nobody knows where his place is, which I like. And the studio is also in a very clandestine location. So, there's a theater production that the studio is doing, and it's Sleepy Hollow. It's a local theater, community theater. I'll be doing the sound and music for it, and when that's over, I'll be commuting bi-weekly from New Orleans back here to the studios and to Beaumont. We're doing a lot of traveling, and if you guys like the streams where I play and in the studio we're recording, think of it as me being on the street. If you can throw me a couple of bucks, that'd be just as good as passing me on the street and throwing $1 in my hat. I could really use it right now, and I am rebuilding, so to speak. So things are on track with the studio. It's just I want enough content to be able to launch the studio and the channel with enough so that we have breathing room, just like a network does. They'll backlog content and then launch, and then they have stuff to fall back on and continually release. So that's the preparation process. Can take as little as 6 months or a year, depending on your crew. My crew is very good, but life life is life. You got to do other things, So, but my focused task is to manage these projects. So, I'm getting a warning that I'm running out of time. So, I love you guys. Namaste again. Namago.